Security has in place. My name is Mickey Anderson. I head up the Security Education Division. And today's program is entitled Remain Vigilant, Situational Awareness. Shortly after 9/11, it was quite obvious that we needed to put a program in place to inform individuals that security is 24/7, especially in the aftermath of 9/11, that when even you leave this compound, we have to look at security as being potential targets all the time. And this involves our personal safety. So as part of our Remain Vigilant campaign, we look for speakers that can provide us good information that will not only help us here in the workplace, but can also help us in our everyday lives. And we're very fortunate to have with us today Master Police Officer Timothy Wayne Thomas. Now what he does is a lot of things actually. Officer Thomas is a coach, a mentor, an instructor, a trainer in many facets of the Fairfax County Police Department. In fact, he told me he loves his job. How many of us can say that? I can. But anyhow, ask Officer Thomas. But in any event, what we want to do is provide you with some very pertinent information that will help you as you go about your daily lives, especially when you leave this compound, and what you could potentially face out there in the public sector, and how you yourselves can potentially decrease the ability of you becoming a target of some adversary or a potential violent act. Another interesting thing, though, about Officer Thomas, it seems like one of his offspring has elected to follow in his footsteps. In fact, she's supposed to graduate from the Fairfax County Police Academy this month, if it's not already happened.
Next week.
Next week. So we got a proud dad here as well. So I don't want to take up any of his time, but a few just quick minutes trivia. There are plenty of security educational products right outside the door. Many of you have gotten some. Others have not had an opportunity. They will still be there at the end of the program, as well as Officer Thomas brought a lot of stuff with him also. So you need to make sure you get copies of this. Also, I've been informed that there could be a possibility of some interaction with the audience today. So if you would all please make sure your badges are not displayed, as we are videotaping. The program is unclassified, however, but we will have videotapes available for those that would like to view the presentation at another time also, as well as your colleagues that couldn't make it. So without any further ado, I wish you would all join me in welcoming Master Police Officer Timothy Wayne Thomas.
Today, we're going to start the presentation in just a few minutes with a videotape. Some of you may have seen the videotape. It's on weapons in school. There's some police chief of a college out, I think in Georgia. I don't know if it'll say on the tape. Anyway, he will drive home a point that I'm going to make for you. There are 3 books that I would recommend. Today's talk has nothing to do with terrorism. Realize that up front. It has nothing to do with terrorism. But it does have a whole lot to do with terrorism of your family and your own life, and it's going to affect you. It'll affect your jobs. So the topic was decided on to be situational awareness, and there's 3 books. One of them is by, well, they're all 3 by a guy named Gavin DeBecker. Anybody ever heard of Gavin DeBecker? Outstanding personal security person. The 3 books are The Gift of Fear, Protecting the Gift, and Fearless. Fearless is the last one he wrote, and it's actually on terrorism. From one of the books, I have several of the quotes which shocked me as a police officer. And these are available over here as you're leaving, or if you want to get up while I'm talking, come down and get one. A couple of the things that I found the most interesting. This is out of The Gift of Fear. It was written in 1997. It says, in the United States, more people died from gunshot wounds in the last 2 years alone than the whole Vietnam War. In part, this is due to the fact that the USA is a country with more firearms than people. 20,000 new firearms enter our market every day. While Americans question the country's human rights records, civilized Americans kill women and children at an alarming rate. And this is what really blew me away. says, in fact, if a jumbo jet crashed into a mountain, killing everyone on board, every month, month after month, the number of people killed would still not match the number of women killed each year by their husbands and boyfriends. That's staggering, and this is just in the United States. These facts about the frequency of violence may help you to believe that it is at least possible that you or someone you care for could be the victim at some time. A key element in recognizing you are in the presence of danger. Belief balances denial. And denial is a save now, pay later scheme, because on some level you know the truth, which causes a constant low-level anxiety. And denial keeps people from taking action that could reduce risk or worry. Everybody's familiar about what happened down in Florida with that 11-year-old girl. It irks me. It makes me sick. I think about my own children. And I got a phone call from a man yesterday who said, is there anything that the police department could teach? I'd like you to come talk to the Boy Scouts. I've got my own kids. I have an 11-year-old. Is there something that the police department can do that will help my child not ever have to experience this? And I told him, well, the police department doesn't teach any physical courses to little kids. We checked it out one time. They sent me to become an instructor in what's called the Rape Aggression Defense Course for Kids. We do the RAD program, as it's called, for females, and if we have time a little bit later, Lynn Stewart down here is one of the instructors with me at the academy that teaches this. It's open to any of your wives or daughters or any of the females in this class. Sorry, guys, y'all are excluded. Outstanding class. But the class for kids, I'm looking at all the techniques they're teaching them, and it was giving a false sense of security to the parents and to the kids. Because I can take out any little kid I want to take out. So for us to play this game that we can teach them how to fight a big guy, it's not where we want to go. So right now, we don't teach anything like that. We do teach them stranger awareness and stranger danger, and we tell them stay away, get away, keep distance from the bad guy, run and tell a parent, an adult, even if it's another stranger. If a stranger's bothering you, run over there and tell them. But then I got into an area that was disturbing to the caller, and it kind of changed his mind on how he wanted to approach this, because he had big dreams, big visions. He wanted me to talk first to the Cub Scouts, then he was going to go to one of the elementary schools. I work in 20 of the elementary schools and do safety lessons to all the kids. He wanted me to go to the elementary school. He was going to set it up, and I would go in and give some of these safety classes to those kids, because this thing happened down in Florida. But I said, sir, you need to think about something. Those books I just told you about, The Gift of Fear talks about what every lady in here already experiences. And guys, you should get it and read it and give it to your wives and give it to your son, because everybody should read the book. But there's another book called Protecting the Gift, and that's about how to take care of our kids. And we're missing the big picture. We're missing the boat. The incident that happened in Florida does happen. It's a tragedy, but it does not happen that frequently compared to the other problems that are going on. In the schools, I'm only allowed to go in and do stranger danger like this. Don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. These are your private parts. No one's allowed to touch you in your private parts. Tell a grown-up if somebody does that. And that's the extent of what I get to tell them. If we go any further than that, which this man wanted us to do, because the real threat is not the boogeyman. The real threat is somebody who got past the barrier of the parents already. It's going to be the aunts and the uncles, the cousins, the other kids they play with, the babysitters, the friend from work. That's where you find your pedophiles. The pedophile has to get past the barrier of the parent. So we have all these kids, and it continues on, and it still will continue. I think in the paper, one of the papers I gave you, it tells you how many kids are victimized every year from that type of problem, and they get killed. It's not the boogeyman, but we're putting all our focus on, Johnny, don't talk to strangers. And then when they get into the line with you in the grocery store, and some man says, hi, you're a cute little boy. The kid goes around mommy like this, holding onto the leg. And what does mom do? Talk to the man! Talk to the man! He just said hi! But they've been saying, don't talk to strangers. Never talk to strangers. So we're sending mixed messages, and we're not getting our focus where it needs to be. So keep that in the back of your mind. All of us have kids, and we don't want anything to happen to them. The purpose of today's presentation is to make you more aware of the dangers that are around you. It's not to scare you, although it will end up scaring you. But you will become more aware, and you will start looking at the situation so you don't place yourself there. When we teach the women's self-defense class, we have a triangle. And on the triangle, we have the assailant, the victim, and the opportunity. If you take away the opportunity, the triangle collapses. We teach the ladies over here how to hurt guys really bad. I'm one of the guys I can do. Lynn can kick me in places that it really hurts. But we teach them these techniques. But first we teach them how not to ever get in the situation where they're going to have to use it. And hopefully they never will, if they follow our direction on what they need to do. Let's go ahead and show the video. We'll just show a couple of minutes of it.
School like this, what it appears to be, and make sure we know exactly what we're dealing with. Now I want to talk about where people hide weapons on them, and particularly in this situation, I've dressed like a gang member for one of our local groups. Now, they can't dress like this in our schools because we do have uniforms in place to prevent that. But I want to show why school uniforms or a strict dress code can be so important. Simple things like making students tuck in their shirt to keep them from hiding a weapon like this Glock pistol, which has been easily concealed up under my t-shirt simply by sticking it down in my waistband. If one gun's not enough for you, maybe another little .380 semi-automatic. This one we took off an individual who was a gang member cruising near our schools. It's even got his gang name etched into the slide, a little .380 semi-automatic pistol. Another little .38 Special Charter Arms revolver, a little 5-shot pistol, easily concealed in my waistband. Items like this collapsible baton, easily stuck down in my waistband. This was taped to my stomach up under the t-shirt, a little shuriken or throwing star martial arts device. Got, for those in the martial arts, we also have the nunchuck, an ice pick concealed in the waistband. I haven't made the point yet about how easy it is to hide something in the waistband. Let's move to something a little bit more substantial, like this submachine gun that, with the magazine out, can easily be hidden up under the t-shirt. Now this one, someone on a traffic stop tried to produce this to shoot one of my police officers. And at the time, they had it rigged with a short shoulder strap to allow it to be worn over the arm and under a jacket and be easily concealed. So it's not far-fetched to talk about how it can be concealed like that, because it actually was set up for that. If I still haven't made the point about waistbands, we can go to something just a little bit heavier, this little shotgun. And this one is actually a lot longer than it needs to be. It could be sawed off from here to about here and still be quite functional at about half the length of what I have now. Now that pretty well eliminates what I've got on my waistband, but there's a lot of other places that we can carry weapons. Most commonly, we're going to find that to be in the pockets, something like a simple little pocket knife. Another gun, you never have too many in a gunfight. Set of metal knuckles. Another small pocket knife. Another little bitty pocket knife, which, while we're on that topic, most school administrators, parents, and students understand that if we have a weapon like this in a school, that it's a very serious concern, Very frequently across the country, students will be prosecuted and expelled for an item like this, but this is where we fall down. We look at pocket knives and small knives, and many times people don't take them seriously. Well, most commonly, when you do have an aggravated assault or a serious weapons assault in school, it's going to be an item like a small pocket knife or a box cutter, and because they're most prevalently carried, because society doesn't realize how serious that is. If a student shows up with this, every student understands that that's wrong. Every parent, every school is going to have some sense of being in the same train of thought that this is a serious problem. But when we get into items like this, we often waffle, and it's very cruel to our children to do that. We need to make sure that they understand that this is a weapon, just like this is a weapon, and they will all be dealt with very seriously. Neither has a place in our schools. And in reality, while this is more deadly in a confrontation, this is where most of the confrontations are happening because these items are so much more frequently carried by students.
Kubaton has a knife inside it. That was a comb with the razor in it. That's a .22 pistol. Inside the cuff, in the sock, a razor, another knife, 2 knives. The back of his neck, a knife. Gun, not in a holster, just in the sock. All right, you can stop it. Thank you. Does it drive home the point that maybe when you're driving in your car and the guy cuts you off, that maybe you don't want to wave to them in certain ways? I have a personal experience. I was driving up 95 to work one day in my personal car. I was wearing my police uniform, but I had a civilian jacket pulled over the top of it. And I'm approaching Springfield. I'm out of the Franconia District Police Station over by Springfield Mall. So as I took that exit, I come to a traffic light on Loisdale Road. I'm sitting there waiting for it. And the road was under construction, and there's a super elevation in the road. And you couldn't tell where your lane went as you crossed the street. And so the light turned green, and I pulled across the intersection. I thought my lane went straight, but it did not. It jogged to the right a little bit, and I kind of cut somebody off, and they laid on their horn, and I'm like, what? Oh, man. We barely missed each other, and then I kind of slowed down, and I continued on. I'm in the left lane, and I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I'm thinking, then I could see the lines. After you get across the intersection, you can see the lines you were supposed to follow. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm wrong. And now this car comes pulling up next to me, and I look over to go, but I get a roll-down window with a irate subject yelling at me, and suddenly goes, boom, and it hits the side of my window. And I'm like, whoa, okay, what is this? Now, we're not allowed to make traffic stops in our civilian cars. It's a good reason, because your insurance company will drop you in a heartbeat. So I start following this guy, get out my pen, and I start writing his license plate number on my hand. And as soon as I get to work, I'm going to run his information. I'm going to track this booger down, get in my police car, and go get him. However, I need to see his face, because when I saw him yelling and throwing something at me, I don't think I'll catch him in that look again. So I see that he's going to make a right turn and go over to the Franconia Springfield Metro. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll go over there, and suddenly get stuck at a red light with a whole bunch of cars, and I'm right behind him. So I step out of my car and take my jacket off. And he's looking in his side view mirror, and he's like, well, one thing led to another, and I didn't arrest him, but I had him crying. He was in tears. And he was saying, I'm a married man. I have a wife. I have kids. I said, what'd you throw at me? And he said, it was my breakfast bar. Why did you do that? Because this is a brand new car, and you almost caused it to get wrecked. I said, yes, but it was unintentional, and I have a gun. Luckily, I'm a cop. Otherwise, I could have a gun, and I could kill you. And man, he was just beside himself. He was blown away because he realized how stupid it was what he had done. So he got a second chance. Hopefully, it won't happen to him again. I want to share with you a story from Gavin DeBecker's book. It's about a lady named Kelly that came to see him. He does consultation work. And she was a victim of a rape. What occurred, I'm just going to tell you the details of what occurred. She had been out shopping. She gets out of her car and she's walking up to her apartment building. She has a lot of bags, but she doesn't want to make 2 trips. So she bundles up all the bags and she walks to her apartment building. She gets there and the door is ajar. It's not closed, and she's mad about that. She's complained about that many times because people have left the door ajar. But this time she was kind of thankful because her hands were full and she couldn't do the code to get into the place. And so she made her way in, closed the door. Let it just close, and it closed all the way. And she started up the stairs. When she got up to, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd landing, a can of cat food fell out of the bag and went. She watched it roll around the corner and go. And she's bummed. And then all of a sudden the hair stands up on the back of her neck because she hears a man's voice say, "It's okay, I've got it." Now she hasn't heard any doors open or close. So her intuition is kicking in really quick. Unfortunately, she's in shock, so she's not going to respond in a way that's going to help her at this moment. It will later. She sees this nice-looking man come around the corner with the cat food, and he says, "Here, I've got it. Let me help you." And she says, "No, that's all right." And he says, "What floor are you going to?" And she tells him, I think it's like the 4th floor or something. He says, "Me too. We better get up there. We've got a hungry cat up there. And I'm late, and it's not my fault." And he starts walking with her up the stairs. He promised, he tells a story. He says he promised to feed a friend's cat one time, and he forgot about it for 2 weeks, and the cat survived. Doesn't make any sense, does it? She starts to lose the grip on a bag, and he says, "Here, I'll help you." She refused. He wouldn't take no for an answer and took the bag, saying, "Come on, don't be too proud." She released the bag, and as she did, she gave up her control to him. This is just a note. The average rape in America lasts 2.5 hours because the rape is an abduction, and the sexual act is not, it's a small part of it. It's control of the individual. 2.5 hours. Once to her door, she tries to take the bag back, and he says, "We didn't come all this way for you to drop everything." She doesn't want him to come into the apartment. He says he is going to help her all the way. He adds that he promises to leave right away and that she can leave the door open like little old ladies in the movies. He raped her multiple times, then got up, and quite a bit of time has elapsed, and says, "Don't be afraid." And this is the first time he told her not to be afraid. Because up until this point, she thought she was going to survive it. And he does some things that make her realize that he's going to kill her. She couldn't articulate this at first. What happens is he tells her, don't be afraid, I'll be right back. I'm going to the kitchen and then I'll leave. You wait here and don't move. She tells him, you know I won't. He gets up and he closes the window. The window was open in the apartment. He closes the window. He's already told her that he's going into the kitchen to get something. As he gets up and walks out of the bedroom, she quickly gets up off the bed, grabbing the sheets with her, and follows him down the hallway. And she wasn't as worried about him hearing her behind him as she was that he would feel her breath on his neck. She was right with him all the way down the hallway. And then when the break came for her to turn to the living room area, she turned, walked across it, opened the door, stepped outside, grabbed a neighbor's door. It was unlocked. Walked in, closed the door, stood there in the sheet, doing this and shaking. This guy had killed at least one other lady. He had mutilated her. Why? Well, there's a couple of things to think about here. They're pre-incident indicators. That's what Gavin DeBecker likes to call them. It's things that you look at, and because you see it, it starts setting off bells, and you know that something else is about to happen. All of us do this. You did this today when you drove here, if you drove in a car. When you're driving down the road in a car, and people are always talking about police officers in certain areas may be racist or something, and they're pulling over only black people or only Hispanic people, or black people are only pulling over white people, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you how it really works. It's like you. I'm driving down the road, and do you realize that the cars ahead of you, in most cases, it's very difficult even to tell whether they're male or female in that car. Do it the next time. The windows are tinted, it's impossible. It's nighttime, it's impossible. We're just driving down the road. And something happens that's outside the norm. I see somebody change lanes without using a turn signal. Happens all the time. But I wake up and I look at it and I'm saying, okay, are they going to do anything else wrong? Because I'm not going to stop them just for that. So continue to drive down the road, and you do the same thing. You see somebody start tailgating somebody, maybe honking their horns, flashing their lights. You see a bunch of gesturing going on, and then you see them cut somebody else off to get up to squeeze into this one and have them hit their brakes, and you start backing off. If you're smart, you start backing off, because everything you've witnessed up to this point are pre-incident indicators that there's going to be an accident. Same thing with a police officer. You're driving along and you see all these things and they start building, and you say, okay, I've got to take action. We've got to stop this. So, some of that's your intuition. Some of it is just learning as you go on. But did you know that intuition is learned? All of us learn it from children on up. As we're growing up, you learn what is normal behavior when you're talking to a stranger. You know that this is personal space. You don't want a police officer standing in your personal space. You know when you're approached by a stranger that if they're acting in the norm, they don't get too close, they fill you out, you fill them out before you move closer. We learn that. People talk about taking their dogs on walks, and as they're walking along with the dog, a stranger comes up and talks to them, and everything's cool. And then by, and you continue to walk your dog, and you come up to another stranger, and suddenly, this dog is growling. You're like, what is wrong with you? Stop that, stop that. And then, when you walk away, you go, I don't know what's wrong with my dog. The dog doesn't like men, or the dog's a racist. I don't know.